Looking for a fast-charging, ultra-responsive stylus for your iPad? Meet the 2X Fast Charge Active Stylus Pen, designed for 2018 to 2025 Apple iPads. Take your creativity and productivity to the next level. Click the link in the video description to shop now on Amazon.
Not planning a murder, are you? How true crime fanatics are using criminology degrees to inspire sick killings. Criminology student Nason Sadi had long been obsessed with true crime, horror movies, and death. His fascination was to such an extent that he would quiz his lecturers at London's Greenwich University about how to get away with killing. It prompted one professor to ask, "You're not planning a murder, are you?" In fact, he was. Sadi had spent months meticulously plotting a heinous crime before executing the sick plan in May last year. Sadi, 20, stabbed 34-year-old Amy Gray to death on Durley Chine Beach in Bournemouth as she screamed, "Get off me." He also stabbed Amy's pal Leanne Miles, leaving her seriously injured, as the pair chatted next to a fire to keep warm. Before the horror attack, CCTV showed the monster on a Rex mission, prowling the beach at night dressed in dark clothes. 4 days later, he would carry out the sick act described as horrifying in its savagery and in its randomness. Their screams were captured on CCTV as he stabbed them multiple times, leaving the pair bleeding on the sand as he shrank into the shadows. In a harrowing 999 call, Leanne was heard crying out in pain as she told the operator, "I have been stabbed loads of times. Oh my God, I am getting dizzy. Please hurry up, please hurry up." She continued, "Oh, I feel sick. They need to be quicker. I am in so much pain. Are you still there? Please do not leave me. I am bleeding everywhere. I have been stabbed loads of times." The murder investigation subsequently revealed Sadi had an unfathomable desire to carry out a murder. He was fascinated by knives, calling himself Ninja Killer on Snapchat, and carried out chilling searches for Brianna Gay's murder and serial killer Levi Belfield. Now Sadi has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 39 years for butchering MS Gray to death. But his shocking case is worryingly not an anomaly. Instead, it bears an eerie resemblance to other horrific murder cases across the UK over the last decade, where murder-obsessed students have taken criminology courses to hone their understanding of the art of killing. The crossbow cannibal, Stephen Griffiths, and the murder of Julia Rawson both involve killers who either had studied or were studying criminology. Griffiths was handed a whole life order in 2010 for the wicked and monstrous murders of 3 women in Bradford. He had researched murders in Bradford in the 19th century as part of a thesis during his criminology degree at university. In 2019, Nathan Maynard-Ellis, 30, and his boyfriend, David Leasley, 25, brutally butchered Julia in Dudley, West Midlands. Maynard-Ellis was a criminology student, with crime scene photos released by police after their sentencing showing a bookcase filled with a mass of true crime books. Criminology professor David Wilson spoke exclusively to The Sun and said some murder fantasists will begin studying the subject to gather tips on how to carry out a killing. He also revealed that he had been forced to censor details about certain crimes in his teachings to not inspire the wrong sorts of learning. Criminology does not teach students to become better killers. However, the reality is that a very small number might choose to study the subject almost as if they're gathering murderous tips. He told The Sun, "Criminology has always been theoretical as well as an applied discipline. To become a criminologist, a student needs to understand the various philosophical concepts that underpin the subject, as well as how a criminological understanding might be applied in real life, about the commission of crime and what we can do about it to reduce offending in the community. Criminology does not teach students to become better killers. However, the reality is that a very small number might choose to study the subject, almost as if they're gathering murderous tips. It has meant that in my own teaching, public talks, and writing, I now very consciously self-censor the information that I'm prepared to divulge, just in case what I'm saying inspires the wrong sorts of learning." Addressing the case of crossbow cannibal Griffiths, Mr. Wilson said his consolation that the killer's study of criminology was unusual has now been shattered. He added, "I took some consolation in believing that Griffiths and his study of criminology was simply unusual and unique, an odd personal characteristic, rather than something to be unduly concerned about. Lots of murderers, I reasoned, might become fascinated with true crime, but it was rare to want to study criminology to accompany that obsession." That comfort was shattered in 2019 with the murder of Julia Rawson. On top of notorious cases in the UK, Mr. Wilson also pointed to similarly horrific events in the US. Lots of murderers, I reasoned, might become fascinated with true crime, but it was rare to want to study criminology to accompany that obsession. That comfort was shattered in 2019 with the murder of Julia Rawson. Serial killer Dennis Rader, who became known as BTK, bind, torture, kill, murdered 10 people all while taunting police with detailed letters about his gruesome murders. Rader had studied for a degree in the administration of justice, an offshoot of Criminology Popular with American students who want to work in law enforcement. Golden State killer Joseph DeAngelo committed 12 murders and at least 50 rapes across California from 1976 to 1986. The serial killer had a degree in criminal justice and had worked as a police officer in the 1970s. Brian Koberger is currently charged with 4 counts of murder after allegedly stabbing to death 4 University of Idaho students at their off-campus house. Koberger is a former criminal justice student at Washington State University. Police even uncovered a college essay written by Koberger that showed he knew his way around a crime scene, according to court files. He mentioned fiber-free overalls, shoe covers, gloves, hairnets, and more when talking about protective gear an investigator should wear to avoid contaminating a scene. His trial is expected to start later this year. Mr. Wilson's concerns come after he detailed how the topic of hitmen fascinates Brits, even though we abhor and condemn it. By Alex West. Twisted misogynist Nason Sadi thought he could get away with murder, picking 2 purely innocent women, enjoying an evening on the beach to play out his warped, true crime fantasy. The 20-year-old spent months plotting his heinous crime and executed it to a T, brutally killing Amy Gray, and then covering his steps by destroying all evidence and denying in cold blood that it was him. He even picked a beauty spot on Bournemouth Beach where he could make his escape, a path known locally as the 39 Steps, after the classic Hitchcock thriller about a man wrongly accused of murder. But the criminology student was no criminal mastermind and left a trail of clues including a murderer's toolkit, a dark internet search history of high-profile killings and knife websites, and an armory of blades at his home. Just days before the horrific stabbings, he had gone to watch slasher movie The Strangers, which he later told detectives was about a killer that kills with no motive. It's just a movie. But for Sadi, it was not just a movie. As the prosecution said, he wanted the notoriety a killing of this sort might bring him, wanted to be the star from a true crime episode, to choose his own attack, in a motiveless killing he designed himself. His internet search history showed he researched famous murders including Brianna Gay and Millie Dowler. Alarm bells had rung when he had repeatedly asked his lecturers off-topic questions about the intricacies of killing, DNA, and how to get away with murder. Sadi had such an interest that his teacher once asked him, "You're not planning a murder, are you?" He spent months researching killings and knives, and then began to work out where to commit his crime. On the night of Amy and Leanne's deaths, Sadi prowled the promenade looking for victims. They were the unlucky pair the cold, calculated killer picked. Despite stabbing them 27 times, he managed to avoid leaving any DNA on them or at the scene. There were also no clear images of him on CCTV, which could prove he was there. A lone amateur photographer out moongazing claims he walked past Sadi and noticed his bumfluff beard on the path down to the beach from the clifftop, and later pointed him out in a police identity parade. Searches of Sadi's laptop showed that after returning from Bournemouth, he Googled Bournemouth Beach, before opening up a press report reading, "Beach woman died, another seriously injured after stabbing." He later read a news article on the arrest of a 17-year-old boy in relation to the attack. When armed cops raided his home 4 days after the killing, they found a trespass rucksack which contained white latex gloves, balaclava, a torch, 2 packets of chilies, and used wet wipes. They also seized a number of weapons, including an M-Tech USA Extreme serrated knife and a black machete, as well as a self-defense spray. In police interview, Sadi arrogantly tried to claim he was innocent, mocking the lack of evidence against him. He said, "I'm just being wrongly accused. I feel like you've got very weak evidence. I cannot believe I'm being wrongly accused of a serious offense I've got nothing to do with. I feel like I've been arrested because you're under pressure to find someone to suspect, and I'm getting blamed. I'm not capable of doing that." He also told police he enjoyed true crime. Sadi said, "I like the psychology behind nature or nurture. I like to look at motives behind criminals. I like unsolved crimes." In court, Sadi's lawyers tried to argue that he was an innocent stooge and the victim of a case of mistaken identity. But despite a lack of DNA or witness evidence, Sadi was found guilty by the jury. His fascination with true crime ironically led to his conviction. We shone a light on the terrifying world of the British hitman, including an unassuming bar worker and a shadowy master lurking in the darkest corner of Britain's criminal underbelly. The professor interviewed a real hitman while conducting his research and found their reality was far seedier and shabbier than how the media portrays it. He told The Sun, "British hitmen, and I uncovered only one hitwoman, a Maori working in a bar in London called T. Rangamaria Ngaramu, did not occupy a life of international travel, intrigue, or espionage, but something far seedier and shabby. These men were often driven to offering lethal violence as a commodity because they were down on their luck, had recently been divorced, made redundant, had debts, or were facing bankruptcy. A casual remark down the pub about being willing to do anything for a few quid could take someone on a journey that they were usually ill-equipped to accept, and so they often ended up dead themselves, having abjectly failed to end their target's life." Mr. Wilson concluded the research pointed to 4 different types of UK hitmen dilettantes: novices, journeymen, and masters.